What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today's video, we have some Detroit Lions things to talk about. And I wouldn't say this is necessary. Well, you know what? There is some Lions news, but it's also some chatter out there, and we're going to talk about it for the Detroit Lions. This is Lions' latest, so let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know, DoseOfDion, he put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome everybody to a video. Glad you guys are here. And I know you guys are looking at that thinking, dang, what kind of A is that? Did you think that? Probably not. Maybe you can't even see it from here. But I'm sorry. I started writing it and then I started writing an I. As you guys can see, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's supposed to be an A. So I kind of just like, it kind of looks like, I don't know what that looks like. I don't like a person with hair. Like, hey, you know what? Hold up 1 second. Because now this is what we're doing. This actually could look like a fish a little bit, but let's just say a person, right? What? Oh, now he looks mad. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to make the eyebrow look like... All right, so today's video, we have two things to talk about. We're first off going to talk about, you know, some of the buzz out there about what the Detroit Lions could be doing with their 7th pick in this year's draft. And we're also going to touch on a player that the Lions have brought in for a visit, Will Parks. Actually, let's start off with that side of the story first because I've been looking at that most recently. Talk about Will Parks a little bit because I think I have some good information that you guys are going to want to hear about what this could mean for the Detroit Lions defense and how he could actually fit in the Lions defense if they sign him. So Will Parks measures in at about 6'1" to 6'2", 199 to about 205. So pretty good size, definitely for a safety that was drafted in the 6th round back in 2016 by the Denver Broncos. Really help on special teams early, but he kind of came in after the no-fly zone was a thing for the Denver Broncos, and because of that, there were some holes that he had to fill. So he came in and played pretty well early. In his second year, he actually had 51 total tackles in his second year. Then you fast forward to 2018, where he actually had his best season in terms of grades. He had 41 total tackles in his second year. He earned a 74 overall PFF grade. In 16 games played, 3 starts, he allowed 18 completions on 28 targets, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 69.2 passer rating. And like I said, he helped as well as a tackler. So 2018 was his best graded season overall as a player. Move forward to 2019, and in 2019, took a little bit step back in terms of grades. In coverage on 37 targets, he gave up 21 completions, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 94.9 pass rating, where he started in 7 games and only 14 games played. He missed 2 games this season, I think, with a hand injury. In terms of PFF grades in 2019, he did take a little bit of a dip. His stats were still pretty solid. You know, he had the 41 combined to 7 missed tackles, and I think because of missed tackles, it probably rushed his run defense grade down a little bit there. And in coverage, he gave up the 3 touchdowns. We'll still make the case that that was actually his best season as a pro, and that came with first-year defensive coordinator for Denver, Vic Fangio, who we know is someone that Aaron Glenn learned from, but we'll get to that a little bit more in a second. Then you go to 2020. So he's coming off the season in 2019. 2020, he hits free agency, and apparently he takes less money to go to the Philadelphia Eagles, who I guess was his favorite team growing up, or it's like his favorite animal. But he took less money to go play with the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles were excited, but it didn't work out. And in December, he was ultimately cut from the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, he had to deal with a hamstring injury, and really up to this point, other than the hand injury, didn't miss games in his career. Very reliable player. But in 2020, he did. And that was with a hamstring injury like a lot of players did. The hamstrings were just bad last season. But he missed time with a hamstring injury, and he didn't play that well. He only had a total of 13 tackles when he was on the field. Didn't play that much. He just kind of lost his role for the Philadelphia Eagles, so they ultimately decided to release him, and they gave time to a practice squad player. But then Denver was just sitting there like, hold up, this guy just hit free agency again. Let's go sign him back. So they bring him back in to finish the year. You can see his snap counts just take a huge rise, and now here he is as a free agent again. And apparently, I've heard that the Vikings have put out an offer for him, but he has not accepted it yet, maybe looking for a different fit. And that'd be awesome if he chose us over the Vikings, because I just think that's cool when you choose us over a divisional team. Yeah, take that. Now, hopefully we beat the Vikings this year. That'd be great. Take that. That'd be awesome. This was an interesting name to keep an eye on because I think he was popular last season when he had free agency as someone that the Lions could potentially sign. And I was trying to figure out what his scheme fit would be for the Detroit Lions. And I think I have a pretty good idea what he would be for the Detroit Lions. I don't think he'd be a top 1 or 2 safety unless you're in a pinch because, again, this is from not a ton of observation, but a little bit of film and a little bit of reading as well. If we sign him, I'll break into this a little bit more. But from what I have seen, it seems as though you don't necessarily want this guy to be a starting safety. As a free safety, deep safety doesn't necessarily have the range there, and he's not at his best waiting on things, anticipating. Can play the strong safety role, I think, at a higher level, but you still don't want him as your 1 or 2. He's mainly like a third safety, nickel safety that can play the slot cornerback position, but also play the linebacker position, kind of just go inside the box. And when you look at the Saints defense last year in a 4-2-5, having that extra defensive back on the field, a lot of times he would slide in and basically play in the box, and that would be like a Malcolm Jenkins or something like that, and they could slide out and take over the slot responsibilities if they had to. Now, Lions did sign Corn Elder to take those slot responsibilities, so they don't necessarily need a guy to be slot corner, but number one, Corn Elder could miss time next season, right? And that thing can kind of happen, so you want a backup option, assuming the Lions don't grab someone draft. And number two, teams are going to spread you out 4 or 5 receivers at times like that, and you're going to need guys that can help kind of all over the place. He can guard against tight ends because he plays physical. So I think, he just gives you some more depth there. And he's not going to be an all-down type of player, but, he could fill in. And maybe he finds a bigger role at safety and helps with development from guys like Aubrey Pleasant who have done really well. So maybe this is an opportunity for a guy that we're thinking may not have this huge role to all of a sudden have a way big role for the Detroit Lions. And we're like, wait a minute, what the heck just happened here? Because we've seen undrafted players all of a sudden have a huge role because of really good development from good coaches. In a pinch, he could play the safety position for the Detroit Lions. That seems like his role would be. And again, that's not from watching a ton of film, but from looking at it, some of it, and reading a little bit on it. And if we sign him out, of course, dive into this and more. But then I was trying to figure out, okay, what kind of scheme fit is he? Because after reading about him, you like to hear that he can tackle really well. He does have some missed tackles, but he's not afraid to tackle. He's a very willing hitter. He does have some big tackles when you watch him play. He's a physical corner that plays really well. Has a really good feel for zone coverage. But his issues come in man coverage, where he's not super shifty, so he can struggle playing the slot role as just a straight-up cornerback, even though he did do some of that in college. He could struggle with that role a little bit, and the Lions have Elder to play that role anyway. So I was wondering, okay, well, what is the scheme fit going to be? Because I expect the Lions to play a lot of man-to-man defense, right? We've been talking about this for a while. I may have came across some interesting information here. So Vic Fangio, who Aaron Glenn learned from, was the defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos in 2019 and 2020, right? And 2020, of course, they re-signed him after they lost him. So he was there when Vic Fangio was there. He fit with the Denver Broncos because he was clearly better with Denver than he was with Philadelphia. So what did he do? Well, Vic Fangio runs something called a zone match scheme. And basically a zone match scheme, it looks like man-to-man coverage, but it's a zone. The big difference here is it looks like man, but when someone crosses your face, you switch. Instead of staying with the guy and fighting through things, just like basketball, you switch off. So it's a zone matching scheme. It's a matching zone scheme. So it's a little bit, of a mix of both, and it gives you strengths to both. And when you look at some of the signings Lions have made, let's say the most recent one, Quentin Dunbar, and you see a guy that excels in zone coverage and also kind of as more of a press man guy, I could actually see schematically how the Lions could be looking to run a zone matching scheme. And what I thought really tied this together is when I look back at when he was drafted, because I try to see, okay, why was he drafted? What was the defense looking like when he was drafted? When he was drafted, this is really interesting, Wade Phillips was the defensive coordinator of Denver back in 2016. And he runs a one-gapping 3-4 that he says you can call a 4-4-3, a 5-2, but he likes the 3-4 better because you don't know when guys are coming. It can look like a 4-3 or a 5-2 if it's an overset, however you run it. But as well in coverage, he says, I prefer man coverage. He likes that, especially when he blitzes. But he says, I like to run a matching zone scheme. Same exact thing that Vic Fangio has been known for in terms of coverage. Now, it's versatile. They'll mix it up. They'll change it up a little bit. But both of these coaches, one of them who Aaron Glenn worked with, the thought here is that Will Parks could kind of be a guy that could compete with a player like Will Harris, compete with Bobby Price, that kind of thing. And in a pinch, you could put him in different sets, like safety, things like that. He seems like, schematically, at least in terms of coverage, he would be able to adapt very quickly to the Detroit Lions, and he's only 26 years old. So he's coming off a very rough year, and like a lot of other guys we signed, it'd be an opportunity for him to prove himself, earn a big role, and then potentially get a nice payday this next offseason. That just was an interesting note as we try to guess what the Lions defense could look like next season, just in the back end, because we say man heavy, but maybe it's a matching zone scheme where the Detroit Lions are playing basically like man, but they're passing off guys. So it's kind of like basketball in that way. So I thought that was interesting, not necessarily just specifically to Will Parks. It doesn't seem to be a clear free safety type of signing it would be here, even though he can play that role, because range-wise, he came out of the draft running a 4.63, doesn't necessarily have that range, and that doesn't seem to be at his best when he's sitting back and anticipating routes, things like that, but he could do it if you had to. So it'd be an interesting signing. We'll keep an eye out for that. If it happens, of course, we'll do a deeper breakdown, but I thought that was an interesting find. And then we take a look at the 7th pick in the draft. Now, there's been a lot of rumors out there like the Lions could trade back. Actually, the most recent thing I've seen is that the Atlanta Falcons have been receiving multiple calls for trading back, and they are open to doing so. We'll see if they do it, but they could do it, and that's a trade that could happen before the draft. We did videos on this yesterday. A lot of you guys saw that, so I appreciate it. Long story short, if Atlanta trades out the 4th spot, they're likely going to be trading out with the team that's moving up to the quarterback, which would mean that basically the first 4 picks of this draft will be quarterback. Going to have a lot of trade back value with many teams because there wouldn't be a team behind them that's directly looking for a quarterback. unless some team's trying to jump in front of New England, which would be just a gigantic jump and it probably wouldn't make a lot of sense, or they're jumping up for a non-quarterback. It'd probably mean, though, that the Lions would have a way better shot, though, of landing a non-quarterback at number 7. But if Atlanta stays there and they take a non-quarterback, then all of a sudden maybe one of those quarterbacks can slip through. It can open up the Detroit Lions trade back scenarios even more. Or it could mean that the Lions could take a quarterback, which is what we're going to talk about. But we have videos on this yesterday if you guys want to really just hear about that. You're looking at like a Mac Jones or something that's still on the board, and someone wants to jump ahead of Denver, then the Lions could be a landing spot for that if someone else takes that number 4 spot. Okay, that makes sense, assuming it's not Denver, because if Denver takes this 4th spot, then, you know, no one's worried about Denver, so no one's trading ahead to Denver because they're sitting at number 4. So for the Detroit Lions, even though we talk about the trade back options, but the talk has also been that the Lions could be looking to draft a quarterback. And this comes from Daniel Jeremiah, who's been bringing this up recently, saying the Lions could be interested in drafting a quarterback at number 7 if one is there. They also brought up the fact that we've ID'd many players, which we talked about because Brad Holmes said that to us. First off, I think there's a lot of fuel being added to this flame because we have a guy working in a front office named John Dorsey. And John Dorsey has been a part of something like this before, where you have a quarterback in place, yet you draft one and he eventually becomes a starter. The perfect example that a lot of people like to point to is the Patrick Mahomes scenario. And that one is a great example, but aside from that, there's not a lot of those same examples. Like, yes, the Browns drafted Baker when he was there, but Baker Mayfield, when they drafted him, it was the first pick in the draft, and they didn't have a quarterback. Their quarterbacks before that were Deshaun Kaiser, Kevin Hogan, and Cody Kessler. So they didn't have a quarterback the year before they drafted Baker Mayfield, and that was the first year for him as their general manager. So it's not really the same situation Lions are in. Also, when you take a look at the Packers, right, he was there for 11 years when they brought in theirs. The best example seems to be the Chiefs, because the Chiefs had a quarterback in Alex Smith who was on a 4-year, $68 million deal, yet they went and drafted Patrick Mahomes in 2017. It was actually the last year that he was there with Kansas City. They drafted Mahomes, and we know what he has turned into. What's interesting about that move is that Kansas City was sitting at number 27, and they traded up all the way to number 10 to get Patrick Mahomes. So it wasn't like they were just sitting there. They jumped up to go get him. So they really liked that guy. But the major difference now is that John Dorsey is not the Lions general manager. It's Brad Holmes. And Brad Holmes seems to really like Jared Goff, like really like him. And I'm not just saying it, like he does. Like if you watch anything from Brad Holmes, tell me this guy doesn't like him. And he did, because he was the guy that was pushing for trading up. And when he was asked, hey, if there's one guy would you trade up for anybody in this draft, basically? That's what they asked him. GM for the Rams asked him, and he said Jared Goff. He's made it clear that that trade wasn't just for the picks, but also because they were getting a proven winner in Jared Goff. So they definitely believe in this guy, Jared Goff. And I think next year is the perfect opportunity to just get to see it firsthand and see how well it actually pairs with a guy like Anthony Lynn. And then they can make their decision on going forward. And I think that's a big reason why they said we are in 2022. You know, where we are 2 years from now, not where we are this year. Because I think this year is a great year for them to kind of feel it everything. Know for sure that the first 3 picks in this year's draft are going to be a quarterback. And they're saying at the number 7 spot, not trending up. They're saying the Lions sit at number 7. So we know for sure the first 3 picks are going to be a quarterback. We don't know who. I personally think it's going to be Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. But we're not 100% sure who it's going to be. But we know 3 quarterbacks are going with the first 3 picks. And then it comes down to what Atlanta does. Now, Atlanta, like I said, is apparently receiving multiple calls for that position. Now, if they trade out of that spot for a team that, of course, would be trading up for a quarterback, definitely could be Denver, then that means 4 quarterbacks will go off the board. If Atlanta stays in that spot, now they could take quarterback or a different position. But if they trade out, it's probably a guarantee that whoever trades into number 4 is trading up there to grab a quarterback. They could be looking at every position, but it's probably a quarterback. It would just depend on who that team is, but it likely would be a quarterback for them to grab. And it could be a team like Denver because they don't want to risk anybody jumping in front of them if they like who their option could be at number 4. The thought here is that if someone fell to the Detroit Lions, that's the rumors. It's not the Lions will be reaching on a quarterback because they're not in a situation, just like most positions now because of what they've done in free agency, where they have to take a certain spot. They're kind of open to whoever they think best available. So the idea here is that if a quarterback slipped through, you know, a guy fell through and, you know, first 4 picks were not quarterbacks and someone slipped through that and, you know, you had 2 of the top 5 available by the consensus, the Lions could take someone if they really liked who was available there at number 7. And the name that I've seen the most is Justin Fields, the guy that could slip through. That's the idea, that if the Lions love somebody at 7, there's a chance that they could take a quarterback. And I don't think, you know, my opinion's changed on that. I think it's pretty much stayed the same. And we all know this because Lions still have left that door open that, yeah, if you love someone at 7, they could definitely take him. I personally don't see it happening. I don't think the Lions will draft a quarterback this season. First reason I would say is that Jared Goff is not just a stopgap that the Lions signed. The Lions aren't sitting here with just some random quarterback for a couple-year deal. You know, it's not super expensive. The Lions have Jared Goff. And Jared Goff isn't just some random quarterback the Lions brought in. The Lions brought in Jared Goff, and they liked him, and they believe in him. And if you lift into anything they've said this offseason, it's clear the Lions expect him to be the starter this season. So I look at Jared Goff's contract situation, and the restructure affects this a little bit, but when I look at his contract situation, to me, Goff isn't going anywhere for the next 2 seasons. Goff is going to be here for the next 2 years as your quarterback. The question is, do you draft someone to compete with him for that spot? To me, it makes more sense that the Lions would do this in 2022 and give him an opportunity this season with whatever weapons they could add during the draft and also what they've done so far in free agency to just see firsthand if this is the guy that they believe that they can, go win a lot of games with. This is the year to see that. Now, Brad Holmes was a big part of drafting, and we know Brad Holmes likes him. It's going to be more likely of a scenario where the Lions are going to see him this year. They're going to evaluate him first person. How does he fit with Anthony Lynn's offense? And they'll make the decision then in the offseason, do we feel like we want to go forward with this? And if they don't, then next year, I think, is where you could see them draft a quarterback if they don't love Jared Goff after this season. Because next year with 2 first-round picks, you have the 2 first-round picks after that in the next year's draft. You could move around in the draft. And if Goff is that bad next season, your record's probably not going to be very good anyway. So at that point, you're probably going to have a pretty high draft pick, okay? You're probably going to have a pretty solid draft pick. You only have 6 picks in this year's draft class right now. Now, that could change, obviously, if you trade it back, but that could be in the first round, which would take you out of the mix for a quarterback anyway. So I think with the limited picks, the fact that Jared Goff is here and the Lions aren't viewing him to me as a stopgap. They restructured him, which was the great move regardless, whether or not, because it still leaves the door open, though there is still a $10 million dead cap 3 years from now. The next 2 years he's under contract. He's probably going to be here because of his dead cap. This season, his dead cap, if he moved on, is over $40 million. Next season, it's over $30 million. So I don't think the Detroit Lions will be moving him in the next 2 seasons. But I think this is the year they're going to bring pieces around. They're going to see what he can do. They're going to see how he fits. They're going to evaluate him. Then in 2022, that offseason, they're going to make this decision. After this year, they're going to make the decision, do we want to go forward with this? And if they don't, they can use their draft picks next season to take a quarterback. Aside from the Detroit Lions falling in love with a quarterback and him falling to 7 and the Lions taking him, the Detroit Lions need to have the clear vision of we got to build around this defensively and offensively, because if we put it in a situation like Matthew was in last year, it won't matter who the quarterback is because we're not going to be good. Actually, a really young quarterback that's year 1 or year 2. And even if you draft someone next season, right, you decide, hey, next year we're going to take a quarterback in the first round, he still gets an opportunity to sit for 1 year behind a quarterback. If you drafted him this year, next year you want to move on for Jared Goff, then you got to find a trade partner for him. Not saying you couldn't, but it would just make more sense for you to wait till next year. Again, unless there was someone they were completely in love with this year. But to me personally, there isn't that guy. If there was someone, I think the best fits for them would be Trey Lance and Justin Fields, because Lance has the big arm and he can run and, play action, that kind of thing. Fields would probably be a pretty solid fit as well. I think Lance would be slightly better. I don't think Mac Jones fits whatsoever. Signing Jamal Williams was a great step in the right direction in terms of offensively. You could look to add some weapons on the outside. Defensively, I think they could improve in a new scheme. I think you brought in some pieces already, but you could look to add even more to that. And I think that's got to be the focus, at least for this year. And you're trying to put Goff in a really nice situation. You need to add pieces around him that you think could bring the best out of him this year, because Brad Holmes should know, because he was the guy that wanted him in the draft, what it takes to bring the best out of him. We've seen the best and the worst, and we know his best is with the run game and guys that can get separation. Started to go towards those 2 things, adding Jamal and adding the speedy receivers. You continue to do that. You continue to build and, give him the best shot this year to see what he can really do. Now, there's that possibility of the Lions saying 2nd or 3rd round or something like that quarterback. You don't have to just take one in the 1st round. I mean, are your odds higher in the 1st round? Maybe. You have better odds of missing on every quarterback than hitting on the quarterbacks in the 1st round. So the Detroit Lions could be looking 2nd round, just like Philly did with Jalen Hurts. I mean, if there's someone they like, later in the draft, there's that option as well. You don't have to go 1st round. I don't think the Lions will do it, but I think it's still out there because the Lions have left it open. They've left the door open. They let it open so that every position is still basically on the table. And they haven't went out and said we're not taking a quarterback because they want to leave all their options and they want to leave what's out there. But the Lions, the way they talk about Goff, we know he's going to be the starter next season. The question is he for the future? I think for this year, the Lions won't draft a quarterback at number 7. I think if they're at number 7, of course, they trade back. They're not in the mix. Unless maybe a guy like Trey Lance falls, and they might, or maybe Justin Fields, but I still don't think they would. If I had to bet, I would say they go elsewhere and they take a different position or look to trade back if it's possible. I've also read oh yeah, hey, Justin Fields has a higher ceiling because, Jared Goff is already 26 and we've seen, where Jared Goff is. I don't think that's true. It's not fair to say that. First off, Jared Goff is only 26. Thank you. Matthew Stafford, look at him when he was 26. Matthew Stafford had a big problem with turnovers at 26, and he really improved upon that. Still not perfect, but he really improved. And Stafford, really from 27 on, became a completely different player, and he was way, way better. That was when Jim Caldwell came in. Really improved from 27 and on. Jared Goff is only 26. I know he's been in the league for a few years, but he's not, some old guy that you got what you got. He could improve. And you take a look at Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn could get something really good out of this guy. Really good out of him. We know everything that went on behind the scenes with the LA Rams. All we know that he told us that he feels like that he's just super happy to be in a place where they appreciate him. I mean, this is an opportunity for him to just revitalize or rejuvenate his career to what it is so far. He's still a young player, very young player. He still had a lot of football ahead of him. And what Anthony Lynn did with Justin Herbert, I know Justin Herbert was a rookie, but Lynn did a great job of just adjusting that offense and making it like a college offense for Herbert when he had to take over. Who's to say Lynn can't really help this guy out? Not in the same way, but definitely help him out. We know where he's good. We've done film videos on it. He's not the best right now. He still has things that he needs to improve upon. And that's why the Rams went out and got a quarterback that's, you know, more seasoned. That's going to give you the big plays right now. That's more ready to win now. But Goff, he's still got a lot to bring. And he still has a lot of things that he could be. He's not just, this is what you are this. And then people want to push, well, you know, hey, they had this great team and he didn't win a Super Bowl. He didn't. He still played a vital part of that team, you know, getting to where they were, right? I mean, he was still the quarterback of a team that was one of the most explosive offenses that we've seen. An offense that put up over 50 points against the Chiefs. I mean, he was that quarterback, right? He was there during that. Was he the best? No, but he was still good. He still got a long way to go, and he can still improve, right? He's not what he is, and that's all he's going to be. So, you know, I just like the thought of giving him some time. Let's see what he can do. Lions give him the opportunity to be the guy this year. They don't draft a quarterback at 7, and next year they could, but if they like him this year, then of course, then they're going to go with Jared Goff for the future. I think they believe he can be the future, and this is an opportunity for him to really go prove himself, and they're going to give him that opportunity by drafting help around him. So that's kind of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching. And